Welcome. It's so often that I can get some very good questions from God's people. And question came up, Pastor, is it right to say Jesus Christ or Christ Jesus? Does Jesus have a last name? Is Christ his last name? Interesting question. And I'm sure a lot of people have probably wondered about it, but didn't ask about it. But this particular person, this very good friend of mine, has no problems asking what's on his mind. And so we're going to talk about that for a minute. Now, I don't want to get in too technical because it may turn you off. I'm just going to get into some basics. And then if you choose, you can do some additional research on your own. So is it out of order to say Jesus Christ or Christ Jesus? Is Christ Jesus' last name? Okay, let's first clear that up. No, it isn't. Okay, Jesus does not have what we would call a surname or last name. All right. Christ is a title. It's a title. And it's the Greek equivalent to Messiah in the Old Testament. It means the anointed one. Jesus, the anointed one. So if you say Jesus Christ, you're saying Jesus, the anointed one. If you reverse it, you're saying the anointed one, Jesus. Either way does not take away from him. What's important is that Jesus is in Old Testament, it comes from a word called Yeshua. And it means the person of salvation. Yahweh is salvation, to be more explicit. Yahweh is salvation, is what Yeshua means, and that's where we get the name Jesus. Now, what's important for us to understand is that in the first century, when Jesus was on the scene, Jesus was a very popular name. Not as popular as Simon, not as popular as Joseph. There were a lot of people, just like today, John Smith. Okay, there can be a lot of people named that because it's such a common name. Jesus was a very popular name at that time. And so in the Roman Empire, during that time, it was clear to make a distinction as to who you're talking about. That's why they would say things like Jesus of Nazareth, because you had to distinguish whether it was Jesus of Nazareth or the Jesus from Judea or the Jesus from this city or town, because it was a popular name. So Jesus, Yeshua, Yahweh of salvation, reflected his purpose. And names were very different in the first century. We use them now basically for identification, but in the first century, they used it for to define purpose, to define character. So we have the name Jesus because he's Yahweh of salvation. Distinctions were made because names were very important in the Roman Empire. So Jesus Christ, Jesus does not have a surname. That's not his last name. It is his title. So Christ literally means the anointed one. And that's what we're saying when we say Jesus Christ, the anointed one. We're saying Yahweh of salvation, the anointed one. So it doesn't matter whether you say Jesus Christ or Christ Jesus, because one part is his name, the other part is his title. But in essence, Jesus does not have a last name. And you don't have to be concerned with whether you say Jesus first or Christ first, because the distinction is one is a name, one is a title.